and welcome to Broken Tool Garage. This time, I'm going to be going over automotive oil pumps, namely the gear type pump or Gerotor pump that you have in your classic V8 engines. Now these pumps, the technology is still being used today, and engines such as your Audi 5.0 engine still uses this style pump. It's just driven a little bit differently, right? So the first part is going to be going over how the oil pump works. The second part is going to be tips on installing the small block Mopar oil pump on the small block Mopar. That's the oil pump I'm going to be using for this tech topic right here. Alright, let's just get to it. Okay, this is the classic gear type oil pump right here. Like I said, this is the small block Mopar pump, just the stock replacement style, not a high volume. You have your pickup tube right here that screws into this. So that's where the oil comes in. It pressurizes the oil and pumps it out this area here, which goes up into the block. This is what the bottom side looks like, and the guts. So here's the cover. Notice there's some porting on here. These are called shadow ports. This is why it's called a gear type pump, because it's a gear. This happens to be a 4-5 lobe. It has to have that, and you see how this is an eccentric right here in order for it to rotate. So oil pumps have a displacement just like an engine, so you can kind of think of this similarly to how an engine works. I'll go over the rotor part first, and then I'll go over the oil pump housing and how that works secondly. This is your inner rotor, this is your outer rotor. Usually there's a chamfer on one or both sides on those. So the chamfer, what it does, it keeps it from gouging either the cover or the housing right there. Of course, the inner and outer rotor go together. One of the key things on these is your axial clearance, which is this direction right here. So that means that both the inner and outer need to be the same height, and they need to have a good tight clearance inside the oil pump housing. So if this were set back a little bit and you have more clearance, oil can flow around that, or it can come up and chatter, right? So that's just leakage, because you're trying to build pressure in the pump. The tighter the clearances, the more oil pressure you're going to build, just like how you can think about your engine bearings, right? So that's one of the key things there. Your diameter is not as important on there, and this is what's called radial clearance, how it fits into the housing, how much clearance you have in there. The other thing you want to look at is what they call tip clearance. As this rotates around, you can see, and I'll put it in the oil pump again. Tip clearance is this clearance right here between the tips right there. So that's what's going to, it basically has to seal so that you can build pressure. Alright, now that you know that, let's get into the housing side. Alright, here's the housing. This right here is your main land. That's the wider land. That's how you know it's a main land. And then we come over here for just a little bit of sealing on the back side. So as we can see right here, the inlet side of the pump right here, you can cut the pump in half. So this is the suction side or vacuum side of the pump, or low pressure side, however you want to put that. And this side over here is the high pressure side. So that's, you bring oil in through the pump, it gets pressurized and squeezed out through the outside of the pump, right? Actually, it goes that direction because this is our main land. So it'll come in, go this direction, and come out, and you'll get a little bit of leakage across there. That's mainly what this does. It just separates the two halves of the pump. Well, before I put the rotor in, I want to go over the relief system on there. So how do you keep from building too much pressure in your pump? You have a relief system. So that consists in this pump, and a lot of pumps have a plunger like this and a spring. And this goes in this little port right here. I would slide that in, but I might not be able to get that out very easily. They usually fit pretty snug in there. So we'll just show you across here. So that slides in there. And as you build pressure, it slides this out, keeps sliding it out and out and out until you see these holes here. It starts sliding it out. You're able to, it's got the slots in here. you're able to start relieving pressure that way. And if it comes all the way out there, then you're fully relieving pressure and you won't be building anything in your pump. So that's kind of determined by your spring, right? So that's how that is assembled. It goes into the pump, and you got a little cap and a pin that holds that in place. Okay, now for the fun part, how it makes pressure. So this is what it looks like together. You have a way to drive it. This is the way Mopar does it right here. They have the drive shaft, and then it's driven off the cam with the gear. So that goes into the oil pump like that, and as the cam turns, it turns to oil pump. So you can see the turning of the pump. I'm turning that direction because that was the wide land right there. So we're coming in, we have to come across and then come out. So if you watch carefully right here, we're going to watch this one. Watch this one right here. As that starts opening up, it starts creating a suction because you opened up an area right there. So something wants to fill that area. That's where the oil comes in. So it's sucking it in, kind of like your on your engine. Whenever you're doing the intake stroke, you can think of it like that. So it sucks it in there. Now we're watching this one. This is going to be the one that compresses it. So we get up, we're about maximum displacement right there. So that's all the oil it can suck in. And as this one crosses center here, it's going to start closing that. Now fluids don't really compress very easily. For all intents and purposes, they don't compress. So instead of compressing, it builds pressure. And you can see how this right here is squeezing that chamber closed, right? And that's what makes the pressure and drives it out. So that's why the clearances are important, because oil can come up through here this way actually and come around, and you get leakage like that. It can come around this side right here and come around the bottom, or it can come across a little bridge right here. That's why the tip clearance is important. So then just squeeze it out and rinse and repeat, right? Alright, that's how your basic Gerotor oil pump works. One of the other things you're doing, if you have one of these apart and you're attempting to check it out or blueprint it or whatever, like I said, you want to use your calipers to, or if you got micrometers, that's even better. You want to check the thickness of your outer, thickness of your inner, and then you want to drop down and get a depth in several locations on this pocket, that's what that's called, and how deep that is, and you add those up and you see what your clearance is on there, right? So you can look in your automotive book for whatever vehicle and see what the clearance is supposed to be for your vehicle. Shouldn't be a whole lot, like 10,000ths or anything. That would be quite excessive. So you want it as tight as possible. The other thing that you want to do, if you're able to check flatness, is the cover flatness is super critical right there. If this thing bows or does a potato chip in there, then that's a leak path right across there, right? The other thing, if it comes in, if it bows the other way, then you're going to be tight in some areas and have leakage around the outside. If you look at it like that, right? So if it bows in this way, then you're going to have leakage across here. If it goes in this way, then you have leakage around the outside of that. So that's why a flat cover is super important. So that's some key things you can look at on your oil pump. If you have a Gerotor style pump, which like I said, most cars do, your 5.0 Coyotes. I know a lot of people play with the oil pumps on those, changing gears out in them. So that's one of the things you can check there to make sure you got a good set of gears. Alright, I think that sums up that portion of the oil pump, and we're just going to move into, I'm actually had some other video. I had to come back and do a retake on this, so I'm going to show the difference between the standard volume pump and the high volume pump. The high volume pump is on an engine now in the vehicle. I'm working on my 73 work truck, so that's where that's at. So I can't show you that one here, so I'll just cut to that other video. And then I'm going to show you the installation of that same pump on that engine. The oil pump I'm going with is this one right here, which is a Melling M72 high volume HV. It says HV right there. So that's how you know that. And if we look at the difference, what is the difference, you might be asking, between high volume and non? This is the factory pump here, or at least factory style. You see the height difference between those, and that's just straight up the pumping chamber, which will also be the rotor thickness, well, the rotor set. You want these to be, you know, the same height, right? You don't want one thicker or one thinner or anything weird. So that is the height of this gear in there. That's what makes that taller. It's a bigger pump. That's all it is, right? If we look right here in this bolt, you see a hole in there, and that's tapped, and that's where that windage tray mounts. We got 2 locations, so you have to have special bolts to do that. And you see I have my stud kit in there, just because I thought it was cool. Not that this engine is going to make that much power, but whatever. So this is the priming tool for a Mopar right here, and you saw that goes down. See, that's what that thing is that was sticking out. I say you got a line up. It's your inner gear. So that just slides down into there. That's that little tower I was telling you about that goes up in there. So what you get is something that looks like that, and you have the mating piece from the distributor right there, and you have to get it in. If not, what happens if you don't get it clocked, it'll just push this up and out, or if you try to bolt that down, get your bolt started, then it can break this, or it will break this all in there, or it'll break your mounting pads over here. Yeah, good things don't happen if you do that, right? So one of the things you can do is get your bolt started, and you look at this and make sure, see how it's kind of crooked right there? Okay, now it's in there. Hand tighten your bolt. Move back so you can get some light. Hand tighten your bolt. Get them started real good so you know everything's good and flush in there. Then torque them. If something's tight and it's not fitting right, get you some good light. Look up in there. Get a buddy to look at it, and make sure you don't break that, right? Okay, here's a little bit more Mopar, small block Mopar oil pump stuff, right? Well, oiling system stuff. So this is one I had on the 360 because this is for a car, and what it does, it goes on the block and gives you a 90-degree kick out. And actually a car block, I have a little tab right there to clock this in place. That 360 that I have here is a truck because it didn't have the little Hooyah clocking tab for that. That's one of the ways you can tell right there. Okay, so this just mounts on. Here's the inside of it that goes up against the block. You have the gasket that goes on there, and then the bolt. And what the bolt is, you see it's hollow so that it can allow oil to flow up through there. Got a couple little passages in there. So if you ever wonder what this little gasket's for, if you buy a full gasket kit, that's what it's for. And there's a little gasket that goes on there, right? Since it mounts like that. Okay, this is more your standard, and it's not to say you couldn't use this in a car, but I think I had to use that with my headers to get it to clear, if I remember right. That's why I had that on there. So this mounts, this is more your standard mounting right here. So this, you can see, does the same thing, but it's just a straight out. And so here's the male adapter. It just goes in there like that with your gasket, bolted on, done. So what I'm going to do, I have it all cleaned up. I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite in there because I don't want it coming out. I've had that happen before on my Slant 6. The one in the Ram Charger before I rebuilt it, and guess what? That comes out. See, this is what goes on the oil filter, right? So you can see that comes out, and guess what happens to all the oil when your engine's running? Right? Okay, that's all I have for you for today. I appreciate you watching, and keep paying attention because I'm working on the 73 Dodge work truck right now. That's that engine that was in the video here that is putting an oil pump on. I'm trying to get it all ready to go, right? So I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time on Broken Tool Garage. look at me, I'm all sweaty, and I'm going to get some more, I would say ice water, but it's melted in this time that I've been talking to you pretty much.